What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Progressive Gentleman Podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Dan.
I'm Matt.
And as always, thanks for taking the time to nerd out about music with us. We got a first for the podcast today, kind of diving into uncharted waters here for us. We're going to try to get into the band interview space, and what better band to start out with than Nephele. What's up, boys?
Hello.
What's up?
It's great to have you guys here. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate sort of sticking with us as we work through the bugs here. I mean, we kind of expected this to be an interesting experience, and, it's living up to its expectations. So, thanks a lot. We appreciate you guys sticking with us through this.
Only an hour.
Yeah, it only took an hour. Absolutely. I guess let's just dive right into this. So how'd you guys meet, actually? Because I'm intrigued by that.
I will get that ball rolling. It started with me and Tyler. Well, actually started with me and one of my friends like a long time ago. I was in this like kind of shitty Pantera like kind of band that I will not ever mention the name of or anything like that. But basically that kind of got me rolling out of high school into music. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need something more challenging because I basically learned how to play blast beats and was like, these guys can't rip to my blast beats because they're like 40 something. So can't do that. So I started my own thing with one of my buddies. I randomly, like some kid from high school, for some random reason on the school bus one day was like, Jake, you play drums. Like, here's the number of some guy that I know that plays guitar. Like, you guys should jam sometime. I was like, okay. And it was Bird. Bird went to a completely different school. And so that was like 5 years had gone by and I had this random number saved in my phone. And then I went to go start a band. I was like looking online for people. I was like, I really don't know. I messaged like all kinds of people. Nobody really was into the kind of music I was into. And then just one day I texted him, was like, hey, this is going to sound really random, but some dude gave me your number 5 years ago and told me to message you. So this is me messaging you saying, hey, we should meet up someday and play music sometime. He was like, sure. Yep. So like I went over to his house with my Honda. I had a really shitty Honda at the time. And I was basically like showed up and was like, well, pack your stuff in here. We're going to go back to my house and jam. And like,
it's funny. It was snowing like crazy. And that was actually the first time I was ever introduced to Periphery was on the way to Jake's place. And we were listening to P2 and I forget what song it was, but like it came on and I was like, immediately I was like, what band is this?
I was brainwashing him like right off the bat. Yeah. I was like, this is the kind of music we're doing now.
I was being reprogrammed from the start.
What was your so you just discovered Periphery. What were you listening to before that at that point?
It was kind of a wide variety of things. I mean, I was always into metal. Definitely into, like grew up like my parents playing rock and roll and stuff like that, like 80s stuff. Just a bunch of different things. I was definitely in the prog scene. Like I was into Animals as Leaders already, and just like different bands like that. And I just kind of slowly branched out a little bit. And when I met Jake, it's like that's when things really started to open up, and I really got into prog, like modern day prog. Other than just like listening to old prog like Yes and different bands like that. So, but yeah, Jake kind of opened my world with some stuff, and him and I started jamming, and it just kind of clicked. So.
And then we started looking for a second guitarist because it was like just kind of like me and him, like a drummer and a guitarist, and like it was just kind of both of us. Like we were vibing because like I was like, oh, do you know this song? Let's kind of just play some songs we know. Like we started playing like that, and then we found Leo, the bald dude with the gauges that everybody knows whenever they talk about Nephele. Like, oh, where's the bald dude at? I was like, what's Leo? Leo was like Leo and Bird met, and they immediately started vibing, like getting together. Like Leo did all kinds of crazy tapping stuff, like shredding stuff. Bird did a lot of the like crazy solos. So like those two started writing together, and then immediately we started writing like the Echoes EP. Like as soon as we met one another, we were like, all right, well now that we know each other, like let's start. Leo had like some guitar profiles, some stuff written. He was like, guys, this is what we're doing. So we started learning some stuff. We started writing some stuff. And then Leo like wanted to bring in a vocalist. So he brought in our friend Curtis Wright, who was friends with Jacob Toy. And Jacob like wasn't even planning on like being like in the band or something. He just like came around and was like, oh, I just like so happen to play bass. And I was like, okay, well, like the vocalist thing obviously didn't work out, but Jake started coming to practices more because we were like, well, we need a bass player. We don't necessarily need a vocalist. And at this point, I had like when I started this band, I'd never even like listened to like really instrumental. Like I'd listened to like intervals, but I'd never listened to Animals as Leaders. I'd never listened to like instrumental stuff. And Leo started pushing like Animals as Leaders and all this crazy stuff onto me. And it all kind of just started spreading. And then I started like, was just like, you know, we really don't need a vocalist. Like we can roll, because trying to find a vocalist in a local scene that isn't like bad. Trying to find somebody who can like sing and scream. Like you bring people in, and we tried out so many different people to come in, and it just didn't fit our style, or it was always something. And like once we found like the core, like me, Bird, Leo, and Jake, like we banged out that Echoes EP in like a couple months. We wrote everything down, went and recorded at our buddy's house, released it. We were playing shows, and then Bird actually was planning on, he was going to college. So he was going to, I think, Penn State Barron at the time, which was like up in Erie. So he was like coming back on weekends to do that. And Jake had just started playing bass for Signs of the Swarm at that time, because that was when Signs of the Swarm started like doing some music stuff. So we were sharing Jake. Bird was coming out on weekends. Things were kind of like dwindling, and like we were still playing the same EP, but like we were like kind of struggling writing some new music. We had a song on the way, but Bird and Jake, we opened for the Contortionists and Monument Entheos at the Altar Bar, and that was like our last show with like a full lineup. After that, it was basically just me and Leo, and then me and Leo found Jesse and Lebo, which was like the Luca Thea era, which is why that song sounds like as heavy and as different as it was, because it was bringing in two different minds into writing the music. And then the Jesse and Lebo era, like we had rewritten the Echoes EP. We were going to re-release that, like heavier stuff. Like we had Luca Thea, we had a few more songs on the horizon. And the vocalist thing kind of started to become an issue amongst everybody. And
like they were those two guys were trying to bring a vocalist into the band.
Yeah.
And kind of like maybe dumb down the music a little bit, like make it a little easier, change the direction.
Yeah.
Like bring the like focal point from the leads to like a vocalist and and sort of like bring it more to like rhythm with like the solo here and there, but kind of take away from the instrumentation. I got you.
Exactly, which at that point, I wouldn't necessarily say dumbed down. I would say just kind of like a different vision for the band, because like they came in and they had like an idea, because they started vibing together. And I had kind of been brainwashed at this point, where I was like, I'm a drummer, but I'm so into guitar that like I just love, and I think that we really can do. I know it's going to be tough. I know it's going to be hard, but I think we can pull off the instrumental thing. Like I really want to do this because I have a vision for this band. And the vision for this band basically came from the band falling apart, because we were at a point where it was like we were feuding so much over like trying to find a vocalist, and like we were bringing in people. We were like considering settling on some people, and I was like, no. So we were all planning on going separate ways. Lebo had a bunch of instrumental music and was like, I also think that we can do this instrumentally. So Leo and Jesse both we all agreed like, this isn't really working out for us to be the best interest. So we all just like go separate ways. So me and Lebo had an idea. Basically, it was just me and him. And our last show that we played as a full band together, Dan's band was opening for us.
I was in a band in high school called A Friendly Gesture. I don't know if you guys ever heard of them when we were still around.
Haven't, but I want to check it out now.
Fan base back in the day. And one album came out called Slug Stampede, full of bangers, terrible audio production, but they're bangers. It was like alternative prog rock, like Chili Peppers plus Tool, somewhere between those.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I think we had something kind of original there. Anyway, that was it was supposed to be our last show as A Friendly Gesture, but we did end up playing another show somewhere else down the line. But that was the show we played at the Hard Rock, opening for Thank You Scientist, and Nephele was also playing that night. And I had heard of Nephele before that. I was like, these guys are big. Like I see their name on like all the instrumental bands coming through here, like all the big prog shows. Like these guys are going to be sick. I'm so excited. And then I met them, and it was like, these guys are really cool, and we were shooting the shit and talking about prog and stuff. Because to me, I was like, oh yeah, I'm just like I'm in like an alternative band, kind of like rock, and these guys are like prog metal, so it's like real cool stuff. So I was like, I don't know, kind kind of like gassing them up at the time. And then I was super floored by their performance. It was amazing. And Jake must have really liked what I was doing. And that's kind of where we met.
Because me and Lebo, we basically we were planning on moving on. It was just crazy timing because his band was playing their last show.
I was getting ready to kind of like finish up my AFG days.
And we were playing basically our last show. And when we're playing shows, I'm basically in like a mindset where I'm constantly running around. Like Matt saw that when he was at the latest show. Like I was like sitting there bullshitting with him for so long. And I was kind of just like, I need to be like warming up right now, but like I'm vibing so hard with like talking to this dude right now. Like he's picking my brain on all the things. You don't meet a lot of people around the city that like come up to you and actually are interested about music. So when you came up to me and told me who you were and you had all these questions lined up, I was like, man, this dude's into this shit. Like he's into it as much as I am. So it was like, when I'm at shows, I'm not in the mindset to like necessarily network up until when we're playing. But Lebo and Dan were like hitting off really well.
Yeah.
And Dan told Lebo that like he had like a solo prog EP of his own that he had written. And like after the show was over, I was basically like, Lebo, like, what are we gonna do now? Like it's just me and you. Like on paper, this idea sounded really good, but like I'm only a drummer. I can only help reorganize some of the things you have and like just add drums to it. And then he was like, well, Dan, that guitarist, that band that opened for us, like he had a solo prog EP, and I went and listened to his EP, and I immediately texted him and was like, basically like, please come save this band because like what I heard on your solo stuff is exactly where I'm looking to take this. And the fact that he only lives like a half hour from me was like a miracle that I had met somebody that I've been looking for so long, for somebody around the city that was like also into writing instrumental shit. So like he joined. And then as soon as him and Lebo met up, like we wrote the Solidarity EP. Like
it was quick. It was quick and it was natural because we kind of like had a similar vision of where we wanted to take the music. Like we were both into a lot of the same bands, like Scythia and Intervals and Polyphia, bands like that kind of had, and especially like at the time, like Polyphia, they had that more almost Intervals type sound where it was like very leady, almost major key type vocal lines in their playing, and that's kind of what we wanted to do with the first EP. And so we were, being on the same page, it just flowed, it worked out, and everything came together very naturally.
And honestly, listening to your guys' discography, sort of from origin to present day, I even said to Matt earlier, it was almost like the trajectory that you guys took is very similar to a Polyphia in a way. Like it started off like heavier, chunkier riffs and then sort of evolved into this more like cleaner, clearer tone type stuff where it's and the lead's a very much a focal point. You can tell, I mean, filling in for vocals, that's what Intervals is. I mean, he made that sort of, I love Aaron Marshall's guitar tone. That's like,
we all
highlight. So
top five players. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So sort of just listening through your discography, like the trajectory, the progression, so to speak, honestly was very similar to sort of like the trajectory that Polyphia went on. So that was something that I kind of picked up on listening to everything that you guys have out. So
yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah. Similar.
Yeah. I kind of feel like the Leucothea, or however you pronounce that. It was kind of like almost like Intervals, like In Time era. And then like, like Bounce House is kind of like the 5-HTP, like more like bubbly, like fun kind of, but also still like chuggy at times too. So it's kind of got like a cool mix between that.
Heavy breakdown.
Yeah.
That's like, ironically, our poppiest song, poppy, I use that term lightly, and our heaviest at the same time. So I kind of like it for that reason. It's like the perfect blend of both.
And it was like everything.
Yeah. I absolutely love that song. I was listening to it like all morning.
Thanks, man. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Trust me, if you guys thought that the clean stuff was the direction we're going, we are going to really mess you guys up with this new album, because this new album is a whole lot of stuff that we have not done before. So
hey, I'm here. Fine. Mess me up.
Yeah, we're open to it.
We got some ideas cooking for you guys.
We like the smoke and mirrors stuff, make us think we were going one way and then all of a sudden you're over here. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, the old
That
switcheroo.
sums up the entire album.
Exactly.
I love it.
But to continue with the the origin story, so like me, Dan, Lebo, we had been writing. We got the Solidarity EP came out. We were recording and doing all this with our friend Jimmy, like one of my good friends, Jimmy Glass. He was like helping like do all the self production stuff like that. Bird was living in Florida because he had transferred from going to he was going to college. He was going to Penn State Barron up in Erie and transferred down to Full Sail in Florida. So he was like a lot farther away, a little less accessible for writing music. But when he had heard that well, since both their names are Dan, when he heard that this Dan and Lebo had a really good EP coming together, I was kind of like talking to them. I was like, hey, like we should bring like Bird in on this too. Like I introduced these guys to Bird because Bird he's kind of always been, even though he was in college and was far away, like he's always still been like an honorary member of the band. It was like always there. Like he was never really gone.
Yeah, he wrote a few things on Solidarity, like the two intro leads, I call them in Reveries, like the real clean thing at the beginning, and the real big like epic Pliny-esque type lead. If you guys are familiar with that, like he wrote both of those, and honestly, like those are some of the best parts on the album.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, kudos. Those are solid.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, big Plenty fans over here as well. So
Yeah, he's got no
yeah.
Yeah, you're hitting all the keywords for us.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
You're, speaking of instrumental bands and then origins as well, the name Nephele, did you pull that off Joy of Motion, or is that something that you came up with?
That was okay. So to give you an idea, this is actually an interesting story in itself because I had an idea of naming the band Dreaming of Giants. That was the original name that I had for Nephele. Like for some reason, it just came to me. And what was weird was every single time that this was way back in the day, when me, Bird, and Leo would get together every weekend to write the music for Echoes, it would storm. It would be perfectly fine 5 days a week. But when we would get together on Saturdays and Sundays, it would storm so hard and the power would always go out at my parents' house because we lived in the middle of nowhere. So I was like, you know what? Like we should write our music to be similar to like the weather. Like we should have it to like be beautiful at sometimes, and we should have it also to come in and be like really heavy at sometimes, and also because like that's how weather is. Like you look up in the sky, the sky's pretty, it's beautiful. It brings us like incredible weather, and then it can turn in an instant and become this devastating force. So I was like, we should translate this metaphor to our music. So I had like these pictures of clouds to our music, and I had just gotten into Animals as Leaders at the time. And I also found out at the same time that there was a local band called Delusions of Grandeur, which had the DOG letters. And I was like, we can't be a progressive band with the abbreviation DOG. So unfortunately, as much as I love this name, Dreaming of Giants, we can't have that. We're going to be in the same genre as these guys. And then like I became friends with those guys. Like Dan had also known Gabe over the course of time.
I actually almost joined Delusions of Grandeur for a short period of time. He sent me a couple songs to learn on bass because they were looking for a bass player. And I just didn't end up having enough time because I was dealing with college shit at the time. But they are fun songs. I'll give him that.
And Brent started doing merch for us. Like he worked for like a print press. So like he was doing merch. So I was like always talking to him. I was going to Delusion shows all the time around Pittsburgh, like networking. I'm like, well, I'm going to be starting a band like this. I need to start getting to know these bands. And so I kind of was like, guys, we need like a different name for the band. And I was like, well, there's other bands in the past that have named they're heavily influenced by like Godsmack is named after the song Godsmack from Alice in Chains. Like there's a bunch of other bands.
You can go on Wikipedia and there's literally a whole page dedicated to band names that are taken from song titles.
Yeah, like,
and it's
very common.
It's miles long. Yeah, like I've had people like, you know, try to like start shit with us because of that. It's like, oh, you guys just like ripped off Animals as Leaders. It's like,
I don't think it's a
go to Wikipedia. There are hundreds of bands that have done the same.
Yeah, like
it's not like they wrote the word Nephele, so
yeah, it's just the word.
Yeah,
and I was gonna say, if you want to get into that, I mean, bands like inspiration wise for music. I mean, like, you know, not just names, but I mean, a lot of times, I mean, every band has inspiration somewhere. So it's like, are you going to say that you ripped off someone's style just because you were listening to that leading up to writing and like, you know, have a similar style? I mean, I think that's bullshit, but I think, I think the name's cool. I was just curious if that's where it like kind of originated from.
Yeah, no, and then we had like a vote, like we had like a bunch of different names and stuff lined out, and I didn't want to be like the this or like have like a plural noun or something like that, like something with like an S on the end of it, like all the other like bands. Where I was like, I want to have something that feels original and like something that stands out and like something that doesn't sound aggressive, but like when we show up to shows, like people hear this name and they're like, it's kind of like a soft name, but like when we perform, it's like the music speaks for itself, and the music would be what stands out to people. And so like it worked out, and I never looked up the definition of Nephele. But whenever I looked up the hashtag for Nephele, everything was clouds regarding it. And I was kind of like, what the fuck is this coincidence? I'm sorry about swearing. I was like, what is up with this coincidence? Like, why is there Nephele? And then I went and looked up the definition of it, and it was like something like this Greek cloud goddess, like this cloud nymph. And I was like, what are the chances that I'd already based our views of the band on weather and clouds on a completely different basis, and then chose a name that was inspired by a band that we all like and listened to that felt original. And it just so happened to be the exact depiction of what I'd already had from band. Like, it was just kind of like fate. Like, it was like meant to be. So like that, finding out the definition of it, like kind of cemented the band's name. It was like just a weird coincidence. But I always enjoy telling that story to people because I'm like, you'll never believe me.
That is really cool that it's like just happened to be like the definition, like you didn't know previously, like when you named it that, and it just happy accident kind of.
Exactly.
And it's cool that it's more than just like, let's look at the list of tracks and pick something, like, oh, Animals as Leaders is an inspiration, so let's pick one of their track names. As there's actually more meaning behind it. So I think that's cool. Plus, if weather is your inspiration, you live in a great state. So
exactly.
Every season we get all of that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but, I want to give you an opportunity to expand on it a little bit. Inspirations in general, musically, I mean, Animals as Leaders, you've mentioned Pliny, you've mentioned Intervals. Is there anything else, that you guys, especially maybe even in the Protest the Hero? Okay.
Protest the Hero.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. They've been a number one band for me since like high school. Even through all the lineup changes and stuff, like I would still consider them probably my favorite band. My tastes have changed around that, but like they're consistent, man. They're just consistent. They put out great music, and I think they're kind of like an underrated masterclass in songwriting. Like the way that they compose things, and especially like they have this approach to like ending choruses that I've kind of tried to integrate into our music, like having like a big, long, drawn out song. There's a lot of changes and stuff, but the ending is always like this big, epic chorus. And that's something I try to like integrate into our music. So they're definitely one of the biggest influences there, despite having a vocalist.
And actually, to that point, Time Under Tension, when it was like first being written, that idea, like the initial riff, I don't know why, but like I was thinking Protest the Hero.
Yeah. And when I heard it, I was like, Protest the Hero.
It was very Protest the Hero like, and I was like, man, this can be something cool, because it's not really something that we've like kind of like ever touched on per se. And I was like, dude, if we can develop this into something that it sounds kind of like Protest, but with our sound that's already there is kind of starting to develop, we can make something pretty cool and different, and just kind of touch in a different area that we kind of haven't before.
And with that song too, because like it was taking a lot of influence from them. I hate to say this because Mike did an amazing job, and we're like insanely happy with everything that he did. Like, it blew our expectations away with his vocal performance there. But the original plan was to have Brody from Protest on that track.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah, we were trying to get him because at the time it was like we were writing the song like when the pandemic kind of just started, and he was offering like, hey, I'll write a song for you guys or whatever for a couple $100. You pay him and he'll write a song or whatever. So we thought like, hey, he'd be willing to maybe hop on a track for us. But I think we kind of waited too long, and it was like maybe a year after the pandemic when we actually had the song ready. And we kind of missed the window of opportunity. But then Bird was like, hey, I know a guy that knows Mike, and he made that happen.
Funny story there, actually. kind of segues into that too. But the way that I got in contact with Mike was very interesting. So I was on a flight home, or going home to Pittsburgh. I forget. I don't know if it was around Christmas time or what it was. I think it was around there. But I originally was planning to go to visit my family in California with my mom and dad. We were going to get together and fly out. And I had missed my flight to go, so I spent the night in the airport, and I just slept on the floor in an airport. And I was like, you know what?
Terrible.
It was less than ideal, but I made myself. My laptop case, I found out was a great pillow.
Now you know. Now you know.
Now we know. But dude, I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna take the chance, and I'm gonna send a message to Mike. I kind of drafted something up and sent it to the group chat we have, and I was like, guys, what do you think? They said, yep, run it, dude. Sounds good. So I sent it out to him, just saying, hey, I appreciate your work, and here's a demo. I wanted to see if you'd be down to do something with us vocally. And he was like, immediately, like, I fell asleep that night, and the next morning I woke up. It was like maybe 5:30 or something, and I saw a message from him, and I was like, no way, right? So I responded back to him, and I just woke up to that, and it's like, from going from sleeping in an airport, feeling this tall, to being like, Mike message back, now there's progress. It's like, it's just funny how stuff like that works out.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. A great way to start off the day.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. What was it like? What was it like working with him? I mean, I'm sure that was probably a pretty cool experience. I mean,
it was great. It was real.
Yeah, he's a sweetorght.
I mean, I didn't really interact with him. I think Bird did most of the like personal communication with him, like to get everything organized. But I sent a few messages with him back and forth after we released the song, just saying like, dude, thank you so much, and you exceeded our expectations, that kind of thing. Super nice guy and very friendly, and even like one of his good like home friends reached out to me and the rest of the band, was like telling us how much he loved the song. So he seems like a really good guy, and it sounds like he's got a really good friend group around him too.
And it worked out having Mike on, because the initial intention, obviously, because Dan and Bird are definitely bigger Protest fans than I am, but in my own way, like I've listened to intervals for as long as I have, which I've kind of put off listening to A Voice Within, because I was like, I don't necessarily like the vocals, but I listened to it and I was like blown away, and I was like, how have I put this off as long as I have? And I felt so bad about not listening to this for a long time.
That's the album that got me into it.
It's one of my favorite albums. And that was when it initially came out. I think I put it off for like a couple months or something like that. And then when I finally listened to it, I was like, okay, so whenever this came about and they were like, well, I think we missed our opportunity for roadie, like, let's bring in Mike, I was like blown away. I was like, dude, yes. Because the initial intention with roadie was, I don't know if we would have gotten roadie on the entire song, or with how big he is, it definitely would have been way more expensive and possibly out of our reach. And it was like a blessing in disguise getting Mike, because I think that Mike, nothing against Rody, but I think Mike blew it out of the water better than I think anybody else we could have brought into the track. So it was like a happy accident, because it's like my favorite track so far. I mean, we're working on a lot of bangers right now, but for having a debut song with a vocalist on it, like for being a skeptical person with having vocals on it, and the fact that Mike recorded, wrote, did everything like self-produced, like, because he does like vocal production on his own. He did all of his own vocal tracking, did everything. He made working on this song so much easier, because I was like even worried. I was like, man, Mike's like such a big name. Like, how's it going to be? Like, we were all nervous because it was working with our first feature. So like getting him on it and working with him, like with how professional and how self-sufficient he is with his materials, it just made it so much easier and so much of a better experience. And getting him in the music video too, because the fact that he even offered that to us, like that, with the cost of that and having him on the track and him vocal produced, probably was still under what Rody would have charged, because of like his stature, which is understandable, like, but still, just having Mike was just
And not to mention, going off of that, like all we did was send him the demo. Like people have asked me this before, like, oh, did you like write the vocals for him in advance, or did you write the lyrics or anything, or even the melodies? No, none of that. Like we sent him the demo, and we're like, we trust you, do your thing. And he came back with like harmonies and this and all that, like tons of tracks, and it was incredible.
Now, was the name of the track like decided upon, or was that based off of like the lyrics that he wrote for the song? Like, did you send it? Here's just an instrumental demo. Like, did you give him any notes on anything, or was it literally just
do whatever you want?
Did we give him a direction?
I mean,
That's
I think
cool.
it's some part. I think like during the solo, I think we told him like, don't go.
Well, like lyrically though, like
Lyrically, I don't
fitting it into.
I don't think we gave him
conversation.
any lyrical direction. He asked you, what things do you want me to sing about, and what things do you not want me to sing about?
Yeah, I think we just kind of told him it was going to be called Time Under Tension, and he took it.
Yeah, we were basically like, well, we want this song to be like inspirational. So like, if you want to write some like kind of like inspirational lyrics, like there's really not too much on our end depth lyrically, because we were basically like, you're the lyricist, you're the vocalist, do what you want, just do your thing. And it's funny because he sent us back the first the first idea. There was maybe only like 2 or 3 notes of things that we wanted to add, but we listened to it, and the whole last 30 seconds of the song that you guys hear on the final version of it wasn't even originally in the song. Like he sent us his first mix, and how big, because we have the song just fading out, like right when the
it was sort of like the chorus,
big outro chorus happened.
Repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was only supposed to repeat like maybe twice and fade out, and he was doing such a good job. Like it was originally supposed to end that on that like on the kid, like right when he hits that long, it was like basically like fades out from there. And I looked at Dan and I was like, guys,
We got to double down there.
this is so epic that like I'm feeling extremely blue balled by this ending right here. And I really so like they were like, all right, let's loop this, because we were like on the spot because he was waiting for our mix notes. I was like, let's kind of just like loop this. And then they came up with the idea of like the acoustic at the end of it, and they said they cooked up, like Dan, Bird, and Ben, I think, cooked up an idea for how long the ending should be. They sent it to Mike. Mike slapped the last bit on it, ended like the clean little send off at the end with the acoustic guitar, and it was like literally a last second decision, but it like made the song. The song wouldn't have been the song it is that you guys are hearing without that little bit. Just hearing it off the bat, I was immediately like, we need more of this. I was like, we'll pay whatever we got to, Mike. I know it's a pain in the ass to ask you to write a little bit more, but I think this song could really be a little bit more epic if you ask more. He killed it. I didn't think he could, but it just blew our minds, man.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I think like, so he did all the vocals, right? Did any of you guys do like any backup stuff? No.
All his layers.
Yeah, and I think like from when he did the like with intervals, I think like you can see like a lot of progression in his vocals too on your guys' track. Like, I mean, he does like some really good like kind of like deeper growls that are really like well layered into the tracks. And then like
I didn't know that he screamed before he sent back the stems, and like I heard these for the first time, and he's like, he just comes in with this crazy scream. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was not ready for that.
Dude, listening to the raw multi-tracks, I can't, like, I just for craps and giggles, I put it into Pro Tools. I just had the song, how we had it laid out with the demo, and I just put his vocal tracks in there, like watermarked and everything. And I cannot tell you, like, I had to stop. I sold his vocals, turned up my monitors, and the power that he had in his voice in the raw tracks was unbelievable, dude. Like, it gave me chills. I was like, this is insane how much power is coming out of this dude's vocals. It's like, it was great, man. Like, it was surreal.
So is this enough to cause another band controversy about a vocalist?
We're definitely
Unless it's Mike joining, then I don't know.
definitely all on the same page with the direction, but it's like we're at a point now almost to where, I hate to bring up their name, but almost to where Polyphia is, to where we're in a space to where we feel like we can collaborate with anybody on music. So if we're writing a song and we're like, you know what would sound cool? Like, maybe having somebody on this track would sound cool. And like, we're kind of in a spot now with having features and bringing in other features instead of trying to dedicate to just some one person in the city and like base your whole entire sound around that. We're kind of at an advantage being an instrumental band with no vocalists. Like, you can essentially write whatever song you want to sound however you want and collaborate with any one vocalist for whichever songs. So like, we definitely have some ideas for some more vocally songs in the future. But
Yeah, we've had.
I was going to say, is that a plan? Was what I was. No, I was just going to say, is that a plan moving forward?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I was getting at. Is like we've had a few vocalists kind of reach out, and I don't know if I should name names, but
yeah, we'll just keep it.
Keep it on the DL. But
you reached out to them or vice versa?
Vice versa, actually. At least
wow.
like, wasn't that I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
but
that's cool.
Yeah, it's something we want to like keep on the table. Like we're still an instrumental band, you know, when all is said and done. But like we have room for features now, and we are kind of more open, and we kind of want to just keep expanding that. Like, hey, work with this guy, whether they're a vocalist or a lead guitarist or something. But this album that we keep kind of hinting at is going to be a testament to that. Like we got quite a few features lined up.
And the difference between the previous lineups and this lineup is that we are confident that Nephele is us, like the people you see in this room.
And
Ben.
Our bassist isn't here, by the way.
Ben lives an extremely far distance from us, and it is extremely a pain in the butt to drive from there to here. Plus, he's doing like a ton of work with his studio stuff and working with a lot of people. So he's working right now. Ben is with us in spirit right now, but he's still a member of the band. He's like, today he is our Nolly.
Yeah.
Today he is our Nolly. He is there playing the bass, the backtrack, and producing, but he's not physically here.
Yeah. Except for live shows.
Live shows, he's there.
Yeah.
He's there at all of them. But yeah, so it's just, we're confident with the material that we're writing. We actually have, before it was necessarily like a struggle of like trying to find a direction, and now like with what we have here, we have the direction and we have so much material, and it's kind of just like bringing that to fruition, getting the funds to bring in these people, because we have ideas for like collaborations with other people and also matching with their schedules, like working with people like in engineers and stuff, like higher end engineers, because this new album that we're working on, we're working with Adam Bentley of Arch Echo, which has been like a big step in that direction for us, because working with somebody who also self-produces, Dan records and produces like a lot of our music. So Dan and Adam like kind of collaborating their brains to create this new like Nephele, like sound-wise, it's like we're taking another step into another level. Like if you guys thought Solidarity and Time Under Tension were something, just wait for the next single that's coming out. It's
going to blow your mind.
It's going to hit a little harder than anything we've ever done before.
We've had a few people like, you know, within our friend circle that we've showed it to, and they've said like, this is the best you guys have sounded.
Not to hype ourselves up, not to put us up there.
No,
kind of think that this shit slaps.
Well, that's what we want you guys to do. I mean, it's I feel like the music benefits from whenever you guys, you know, or as a band writing the music. Like if you're not hyped up on your own shit, then what's the point? You know what I mean? So
exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
And just to touch back on the Time Under Tension single with the vocalist, you know, we talked earlier a little bit about how, you know, the vocalist thing maybe makes you dumb down the music or whatever. I didn't feel that way at all about that track. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think, you know, kind of keeping it as like a feature type thing, a one-off like, every once in a while.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is like we're not, maybe in like the old example, like the intention was to write for a vocalist, and being an instrumental band now, like we don't have that same like approach. Like we still write with the intention of being an instrumental band. So like we didn't carve out space for vocals other than maybe like the ending, because the original plan, I guess, like Jay kind of said, it was that for Rhodey to come in during the clean part and finish off the song. And then when Mike got it, he was like, I'm going to do the whole damn track. and he killed it, because like, even during like the verse and stuff, where like, I'm you know, doing some pretty shreddy, tappy stuff, and there's changing time signatures, all this stuff, he still balances it really perfectly.
Yeah.
And we didn't,
I was going to say the leads,
but yeah.
Yeah. The lead guitar sort of, with the lead vocal, they sort of complement each other one another rather than like fighting with each other,
Exactly.
which sometimes you would think that would happen whenever you're taking an instrumental band that writes leads to essentially replace vocals. But I felt like they sort of meshed really well. So compliments to both you guys and to Mike for sort of making that work.
Yeah, thank you, man. Like that was actually something I was kind of concerned about when we sent out the song, because like it was written as like the guitar lines you heard there were the chorus. That was the chorus before Mike came on and like made his own chorus, and it sounded twice as good because like you said, they blended nicely. Like he didn't step on it; he complimented it. He brought it up.
For sure.
Yeah, I think he like tried to harmonize a lot with your guys' music, which already had its own built-in chorus, which I think just like lent to it and added that like extra, icing on top.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Like
he brought it to the next level.
He brought it up to another level that like, well, I didn't think it would get to be honest. Yeah.
Very cool. Switching gears a little bit. So you guys have gotten to open for some cool bands. You mentioned the Contortionist already. I know you've opened for Polyphia. What's your favorite, your favorite show period, whether that's just because, even if it's a local show, what's your favorite experience playing live?
The Lit AF. No, I'm just
we'll get there.
that was the easiest I've ever played, 5 minutes. But my favorite show, mine personally, since I'm the only member here that's played every single show from the first show to up to now. It probably had to have been the Contortionist show in 2016. That had to have been one of my favorites, despite the fact that even that night, after we had played, it was downpouring, and the roadies all were like grabbing my drum set. So at the altar bar, they were tossing it to the alleyway. So my drum set got completely rained on and soaked that night, which was like that. The fact that happened, it didn't even faze me because of how much of a great night it was. Getting to hang out with those guys, because I was right when Language had just came out, and I was just like mind blown, like being able to hang out with those guys, like setting up my drum set, like watching the Contortionist, like sound check and playing their songs. And then Naveen came down from Entheos. He's like looking at my drum set, like walking around, and he's like, "Oh man, this is a nice kit." And I've gotten that a few times from like playing with bigger bands, because they're used to seeing the local band and they just see these like
house kits almost.
I put a lot of money and time into my drum set to be like something, because I know this genre. I know it's like a gear. People that are fans of music like kind of oogle over the gear. I know it's like the joke of like our shows are a bunch of nerds staring at guitar pedals and stuff like that. But I have like a standard of my own to where I want the drums to sound good, and I want the gear to be able to perform well. And being at that show and being able to see like the dude who helped write K-Fo come down and look at my drum set and be like, "This is a killer set." That was just like so many things were just piling up to make that show a great night. That show. And the Guitar Collective show that we played at that was at the Funhouse in Mr. Smalls, where we played with Angel Vivaldi, Andy James, and Scale the Summit. Like being able to sit back in the green room and talk to Chris Letchford and sit there and talk to Angel Vivaldi, like how nice they were that night. It was just unreal. And then to see Charlie Engine, who was drumming for Scale of Summit that night, who's me and him's drum sets, because he has a really wide Tama drum set. Me and him both had Tama drum sets, and they're both set up next to each other. And then, like, not even a year later, he joins Five Finger Death Punch. And I'm just like, I was drumming next to the guy who plays drums for Five Finger Death Punch, like, not even a year ago. Now he's killing it playing for Five Finger and Scale of Summit at the same time. So, like, being able to hang out, like, how nice Charlie was that night, how nice Angel was that night, like, how informative and cool Chris was. And I would say with the current lineup, one of our favorite shows we played was with Sarah Longfield last year.
Oh, that's cool.
That's really cool.
Oh, I remember that tour coming through. I did not get to go to it, but I wanted to. She's fantastic.
They were awesome live. They were
That's awesome.
super to hang out with too, but like they would put on a really great show. Like I was actually really impressed by their bassist, because she was like playing all the same kind of tapping stuff that Sarah does, like on bass.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, Sarah was super informative about like the industry, because she's talking to us from a perspective of like, hey, I'm also like in the instrumental community. Like she's worked with a lot of people in our same genres. So like she was super informative. Her husband, Derek, was like super cool. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever checked out, he has a band called Laddermath. And he plays guitar for Sarah. If you guys haven't checked out Laddermath, write that down now. Because
Killian Duarte is the bass player in that band. So
yeah.
You know it's gonna be good.
If you guys haven't checked them out, definitely go check them out because Derek was awesome. Sarah was awesome. Like, just getting to meet those guys. I've been friends with them on the internet and shit posting and sharing memes with them for years. So being able to like meet them in person, hang out, like just seeing them play, getting to open for them, and then just hearing them like give us positive feedback. Because like Sarah took a video of us playing that night, posted it on her Instagram, and I was like blown away because she has like all these fans and all these people that she's performed to over the years. So like getting that reach and like getting to see like somebody you've looked up to over the years post and share your stuff and like say like you guys were awesome was like a huge pat on the back to us because we were getting ready to start filming the music video for Time Under Tension that following weekend. So we played that show with Sarah and then we started filming that, which was a whole experience for me because I shot and filmed like 99% of the Time Under Tension music video, along with our friend Steve, who shot all the drum shots of me, because obviously if I'm filming, I can't film me playing drums.
Yeah. That'd be impressive if you pulled that off.
Yeah, just they're playing and like a third arm reaching out, like record myself with one hand or some shit. But no, that whole time was just a great time. So I would say that's, from my perspective, these guys might have a different view, but like, it was dope.
Yeah.
Dope shows.
I wasn't there for a lot of those shows because, you know, from our history segment at the beginning, I didn't join up until, what was that, 2018, I think, 2018, 2019. So, yeah, I wasn't there for like the Contortionist shows or any of the Polyphia shows or even the Guitar Collective. But that Sarah Longfield show was awesome. And the Fallujah, we played with Fallujah a couple months ago, and that was amazing too, because like they're just like, they were fresh with the new lineup. They got Kyle on vocals, and I was actually been you know like I've talked to Kyle a bunch of times online before, because I knew him from his old project Archaeologist, because you guys are familiar. And he's a super cool guy. Like, he was always really nice to me before that, and you know they're all very down to earth people. Like, you know, this new Fallujah glory hasn't gotten to his head or anything like that. And they were super cool. Like, you know, shooting the shit with us, and even Scott, their lead guitarist, came up to us afterwards and were like, "You guys were like low key the best people we've toured where we've played with on this tour so far." And hearing that from like one of my guitar heroes was pretty surreal. So
yeah, that's
awesome.
That's really awesome praise.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I didn't join until like early 2019, or else my favorite might have been the Guitar Collective.
Yeah,
that's like, those are like all my guitar heroes.
Yeah.
But like,
Still bummed I missed that one.
yeah, I was actually in the crowd during that, so that seeing them live was like insane.
So you still experienced it?
I experienced it, but I didn't get to like experience it playing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But didn't get to rub elbows necessarily with the guitarists or whatever, with Angel and with who else was there?
It was Andy James,
Scale the Summit,
and Angel Valdi. So actually, within a year of that show, both Andy James and Charlie Engine joined Five Finger Death Punch. So we played with two members of Five Finger Death Punch that night.
Yeah, that's
it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to touch on like the origin thing. When me, Dan, and Dan had the band, and this is another crazy coincidence. CR was dating Lebo's sister over the course of like shows that were coming up. So when we had written Solidarity, we got to a point where we were like, we kind of need another guitarist to like play this stuff. So we were originally going to have it backtracked, and then Lebo his life ended up getting super chaotic, and like a lot of things were happening, and just like a lot of like mental stress because he was going through school and a lot of things happened. So he dropped out, and it was just me and Dan at a certain point. And then I was like, yo,
this was when he dropped out. This was actually like right in the middle of recording. Like, I finished recording all the parts that I wrote, and it was like, all right, Lebo, your turn. And he was like, all right, I'm a head out.
Yeah, he was handling like it was just really bad timing again, because like we've continued to face adversities with band members and stuff. Not to shift back into the thing, but I wanted to completely cover the whole basis of the thing. If you want to edit.
We're still like real cool with him. Like he's even like
awesome.
contributed a couple riffs to the stuff that we're writing now.
Yeah, like he was
Awesome.
just spacing a lot at that time, and so it just made sense for him to step out. We were going to find somebody else to try to record these parts, and Dan was kind of just like, I'll take it into my own hands. So Dan essentially recorded all of Solidarity on just both guitars and bass. Like he did
just about
every single thing for Solidarity, and I just did the drums, and I helped contribute some backtracks because he was doing so much. I was like, well, you do that. The drums are already written, so I'm just going to kind of start throwing a bunch of synth and string sections at it. And like, man, once he was done with guitars, then we collaborated on like the final backtracks and everything. And then whenever Lebo had stepped out, it was just me and Dan. And I had messaged CR because we kind of seen the Lebo thing coming because he was handling a lot of, like I said, a lot of things at the same time. And I messaged CR and was like, CR, like, is there any way you could play for us? And he was like, he's like, I got a lot of things going on right now. Like, if you don't find anybody, message me back like around the beginning of 2019, which was like only a few months away from 2019. Like basically like January 2nd or 3rd of 2019 came, and I was like,
6 o'clock hit midnight on January 1st.
I seen 2019 hit, and I was like, hey, yo, CR, my man, are you still down to play guitar? And he came over and was like, yeah, sure. So Dan, like, lit him up with all the tabs. And it was just crazy positioning-wise because, again, we had really nobody around us, but he was, like, essentially, like, a part of the band because he was, like, friends with Lebo, with dating Lebo's sister. And I was like, well, he's like right there, and he stepped in and filled the spot flawlessly. And then right after that, Dan was working with Ben.
Yeah, Ben was like a new hire at my company, and then all of a sudden, like I see this new guy, and I'm like, this guy looks like he's into like some cool music. Like he just has that vibe to him. He's got like the long.
There is a look. There is a specific look.
Like he's got like
sure.
the shaved sides of the head and kind of longer on top. I'm like, this guy looks like he's into metal. So, I started striking up conversation with him. I'm like, hey, what kind of bands do you like? Turns out there's a lot of overlap, especially like Periphery and stuff like that. And he came from being a touring bassist. Like I don't know if you guys know, but he used to tour with, what's her name?
Lacey Stern.
Lacey Stern, the singer from Flyleaf.
Yeah, from Flyleaf, yep.
He used to be like her solo project bass player on tour.
That's pretty cool.
So he's like,
that's cool.
Done it professionally. He's met with like, he met like Korn and Disturbed, I think, like all
Shine
kinds
Down,
of
Breaking Benjamin. He's played with like all these like huge bands on these festivals and tours, touring with her and stuff. So just when we wrote Solidarity, it's just crazy how the dominoes and the puzzle pieces fell into place. Because like I'd gone from years of trying to find people within Pittsburgh that like can play this stuff, like are available or even willing to drive, and we've essentially found an entire lineup all south of the city of Pittsburgh. And now we're all like, it's just crazy how everything came together. Aside from Ben, again, Ben lives in Derry. He lives in middle of nowhere, God's country, which I also live essentially in God's country, south of Pittsburgh. But
the opposite.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's essentially the entire origin story of how I have powered through every bit of adversity with trying to find band members, and now we have a group of people who are all
now you have this masterpiece of a lineup.
Yeah, it feels like a super group.
Exactly.
It kind of is. I mean, you pieced it together, right? So it's kind of, I mean, it's definitely worked out, I think, for you guys. I think especially like sound wise, it's all cohesive. It sounds great. I feel like you guys are in your prime and poised to start, let's get you guys on a freaking tour. Like, let's get around here. Like, did you guys?
I want them.
The only band from Pittsburgh that I can remember that was instrumental that I know got at least one tour with intervals and Pliny actually was Save Us from the Archon. Do you guys have any familiarity with those guys?
I saw them. Jake, I think you know them like more personally, but I saw them live. Okay.
Nice.
That was before I joined them, but I guess I don't know. I remember seeing them live. I think they opened for Chon one year on the tour, and nice. I went with one of my friends from my old high school band that I mentioned, and we were just like fucking floored, like blown away. Like these guys are just like,
oh, they're insane.
Drummers fucking all over the place.
They were insane.
I was like, what is happening? Like, it It was musical.
Yeah, and you guys are from Pittsburgh. It was awesome.
Yeah, and being like a local band, I was like, these guys are just insane.
And seeing them like going on tours with Intervals and Pliny for being a Pittsburgh band that was instrumental, that was like a really big fuel to the fire of like the bandmates at the time. I was like, guys, like these guys can do it. Like I understand that we're all not like math rock gods like these guys are, but like we can bridge the gap. Like these guys are doing it.
I was gonna say, I feel like you guys have sort of filled that void from whenever, for me personally as well. So I actually didn't discover Save Us from the Archon until I saw them in a basement of a bar in Toronto, Canada, opening for Intervals and Pliny, and Nick Johnson just randomly showed up, and there were maybe like 50 of us in this basement. So like after whomever was playing at the time was done, they would just come out and stand in the crowd with you. So like we got to hang out with Pliny and with Aaron Marshall, and I mean it was Aaron's local show since he's from Toronto. But what was nuts was I didn't know who they were, and they were opening for this tour. So after they were done playing, and when you watched them play live, it was kind of a mind-blowing experience, like you said, because we started off this by saying organized chaos. That like defined them for me. So watching how spastic yet like organized their set was like, who is this? And then at the end they're like, we're Save Us from the Archon from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm like, I drove from Pittsburgh to Toronto
like what are the odds?
to somehow discover a band from Pittsburgh. So like since that happened, I was like, oh, I'm real big, and it made me really start digging more into like the local scene, because admittedly I wasn't super into it, and discovered you guys honestly that way. And for me, ever since they've gone sort of, they've parted ways, you guys have filled that void for me personally. And it's exciting to see sort of how exciting really our local music scene is becoming. And I think you guys have sort of a big part in that. So personally, thank you guys for being awesome. And
really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, seriously.
But let's jump into this Polyphia situation, because I really want to talk about it. It was actually my first time seeing you guys live, seeing Nephele in that time live, and so I don't know if you guys do you want me to tell my perspective of it first, and then you guys can sort of fill in the gaps from behind the scenes?
I kind of want to hear your perspective.
Yeah, actually, if you want to tell yours, this is a perfect segue, because the first show that we did play with Polyphia, Save Us from the Archon and Delusions of Grandeur, played that show. Was us,
That's awesome.
Delusions of Grandeur, Save Us from the Archon, and Polyphia. And Delusions was playing an instrumental set that night. I don't know why. I think maybe Brent was like maybe sick that night, or something had happened, like scheduling conflicts where like they continued to play the show. But it was a full instrumental set. And I was even thinking, I'm like, Delusions is on this show. They're one of my favorite local bands, but they have a vocalist. So like this would be interesting to get the pit going, like with all these nerds, all these other fellow masters.
Right.
And it was cool to see that. So I'm down to hear your perspective of the Polyphia show, because obviously I know mine, but like if you guys probably don't know, there are actually two Polyphia stories of both times we played with Polyphia.
I did know there was a first one, because I've seen you touch on it a little bit. And when I saw that, because I think the first one happened at Smiling Moose, if I'm not mistaken. So I wasn't there for that one, but I've heard a little bit about that. But the one that I was there for, I think it was at Cativo, I believe, in like Lawrenceville. And it was, I guess it was the Lit AF tour. Is that what that tour was? So it was, Polyphia was the headlining, and then it was Covet and Jason Richardson with Luke Holland, playing his, I think what it was called or One or whatever, his like solo record.
I was actually there for that, and that was before I joined the band. I didn't even really know who the
was. We probably accidentally rubbed elbows that night. Right. But I actually had VIP for that show. I was into Polyphia at the time. They had just toured with Coheed, which I'm a major fan of Coheed. If you guys have listened to the podcast, I somehow find a way to talk about them pretty much every episode. So I had seen them tour with them, and whenever I saw that they were coming with a headline show, I was just all right. I'll go check that out, and somehow stumbled into the VIP situation. So they were obviously running very late. We had got there for the VIP whenever we were supposed to line up, and of course, when you do that in the email, it's always like, if you're not here, you're not getting in. You're not getting this. So we were there early. Me and my buddy who also went with me, and. Not Matt. It wasn't Matt at the time. So we ended up waiting outside. We actually saw, Nephele was there, Covet was there, everybody was there already in there setting up, and Nephele opening. Obviously had to set all their shit up. You guys had to set your shit up, and Polyphia shows up like, I want to say 45 minutes later than they were supposed to. It might have even been worse than that. Part of the VIP experience was like, oh, you get to hear them sound check. So they had to come in, set up all their shit, sound check, do the VIP thing. So at this point, we're like way late. And from what was going on in the crowd and what we were hearing, they were basically telling you guys, you're not going to play, and then I think I heard like Yvette Young or Covet even had offered to like take some of our time to be able to play more. I had heard somebody say that, but again, this is from the perspective of being in the crowd, and it was a relatively small crowd. So like you kind of heard a little bit of the goings on, especially with the VIP being in there early. So it basically sounded like you guys were getting a shaft, which sucks.
I didn't even know. We didn't know. Like they basically told us, they were like, everything's fine. Everything's fine. We're just pushing doors back. And then,
which is crazy because we heard, like myself, like, I mean, I'm standing basically, I was against the stage. And it's a relatively crammed area. So like their merch table was essentially right there to the left. And their band manager at the time also was doing the merch or whatever. So they were trying to rush us through the VIP, which was fine. They were late. We get it. But they were also talking to staff at the venue about, like changing set times and stuff like that. And it sounded like, from what we heard, that you guys were going to get the shaft. And then I heard, I'm almost positive it was Yvette from Covet say, like, just give them some of our time.
And that's exactly what happened. Like, I'm rushing around doing a million things. So I was basically just like, I'm standing there watching Polyphia play like a full pre-show to their show, like VIP set to the thing. And I'm like, they can't cut one, maybe two songs, something like that. But again, VIP paid for what they paid for. So like they're supposed to get what they are. But
all it said
was like, it was wild.
Yeah. And all it said in the VIP was you get to witness sound check. What that meant could have been variable. So they could, like you said, I think they played like 2 or 3 songs almost the whole way through as a sound check, which maybe that's normal. I'm not in the like live music space, so I don't, but in my opinion, I don't think that's normal.
Usually, like play like 1 minute of a song. Is that
right?
You're good.
And the whole thing, and they're closing the show too. I mean, they're the headliner, so it's like if you needed to fix some things towards the end before you actually start your full set, then that's something. I mean, they do that shit anyways, right? I mean, so it's like, so I was getting those vibes that basically they were screwing you guys over, and you guys had already set everything up. So it was almost like they were just going to make you tear your shit down, like. You set everything up just to tear it down and leave, which is like, so that was sort of the beginning.
One song though, right?
Yeah, one song. I remember. Yeah, I remember, and it was very good. I mean, you guys sounded great for what it was. It would have been nice to have been able to hear more, and I'm sure you guys would have enjoyed playing more. I mean, that's kind of a crowd catered to what you guys do as well. I mean, Covet, Polyphia. I mean, that was an opportunity that I feel like they were taking from you, and I was not the only one in the crowd that recognized that. And I have other stories about Polyphia too that I don't necessarily have to dive into, but I want to hear from your perspective. So like, it sounded like almost the people that were just unintentionally hearing what was going on out on the floor were like more in the loop than you guys even were.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we were. So I'll tell them backwards since we're already on this one. I'll tell this one and I'll tell the first one. But we sold 60 tickets for this show.
That is
Like,
not an easy feat. If you ask any local band how many tickets they normally sell, nowhere close to that.
yeah, we pushed an insane amount of tickets for this show because, again, like for the Contortionist show, we played the Contortionist show, which was sold out, and at the Altar Bar, and I pushed over 50 tickets for that show, and that was, I do believe, on a Monday night. And,
Wow.
and it's because it was a band that I really liked. So if you want to gain trust, like you're a newer up and coming instrumental band, you want to gain trust and like network and show the local promoters that like you have what it takes to like do the work and like go and like get grimy and go places and network and talk to people and sell these tickets. So exactly what I did.
And also if you have like that local base too, right? I mean, that makes sense. If you're pushing 50, 60 tickets for a show, that means you have 50, 60 people that are willing to come see you guys play.
Exactly. So, and like you said, that was probably one of the biggest like shows for us, a huge opportunity for us to be able to like get new fans, which is like something that a younger, smaller band needs to do. So they showed up late. And I was like, hey guys, like I'll help you carry some stuff down. And like me and all the guys were like, all right. So we helped Polyphia like load in. We helped them carry some stuff down. We sold 60 tickets, helped them load in. We get down there. We're talking to all these people. And I just slowly start to see them drag their feet and take their time with the VIP. And I'm sitting there like looking around and I'm like, do you guys see what time it is? And like I looked at the guys, like my drum set's set up, ready to go, watch this VIP thing. And time slowly just starts to slow down for me and also speed up at the same time. And I'm like, there's a massive line of people outside. Doors was supposed to be 10 minutes ago. And they're still playing on stage. They're still playing songs. Like they should have did their sound check, should have been off. They played 3 full songs. They did like the full pictures taken, kissing babies, signing titties, whatever. I'm like, okay, things they're obligated to do. But when we got up on stage, like obviously we're being rushed. They're like, yo, let's get up on stage. So we get up, we set up, we start playing. And after like our first song, which is a 5-minute song, we played for 5 minutes. And sound guys like basically comes up on stage, starts yanking mics and stuff. He's like, you guys got to get off stage. Like we got to get you off. I'm looking around and I hear the crowd start to like, it's happening right in front of me. I'm like, oh my God, like we sold 60 tickets to play basically just to help sell this tour out for these guys. Like, the whole tour sold out. How many other local bands in other cities also got this same exact treatment from these guys that whatever happened, time, whatever, but just like communicate a little bit, just let us know. But luckily Covet did cut time from their set, which was I was told afterwards. So I hear the crowd start, like I'm Mr. Krabs, and I'm like the room's spinning. I'm up on stage. I was just told like, hey, you guys are getting off the stage. I was like, what? Like we just played one song. Let us play one more song. And they're like, no, like you gotta get off the stage. So the crowd's like booing all this stuff. I come up, I gotta like bite my tongue, and I'm kind of like de-stressed the room. Like, hey guys, like it's not our fault. Like things happen. Like the accidents happen. Like this is fine. Things happen. Which to me, this is the second time that we had been screwed by Polyphia. So like to me, I was like, this is no coincidence that we are being shafted by another huge opportunity to make fans. And like it's hitting me hard because like this is one of my favorite bands, and like I want to believe that things happen, but like lightning doesn't strike twice in a situation like this, and it's the responsibility of the people that are doing that.
And they were one of my favorite bands as well. And honestly, that experience just at being in the crowd, and I wasn't one of the people that bought a ticket from you guys, but thinking about this, like 60 tickets. I would love to know what the max capacity of that room is. You guys probably sold 50% of the tickets for that show. You know what I mean? Like maybe so, but yeah, that's just thinking about that and like sort of the influence that you had. No wonder I was hearing so many other people who were sort of, unhappy with how things are playing out, and experiences like that and other ones that I've had, have honestly taken away from like, they're still great musicians, but for me personally, it's like hard to, I don't know.
I mean, even for me, like the new album that just came out, like I love it. I still listen to it. I stream it, whatever. Like I can separate the people from the art from the artist. Yeah. But even that night at the show, like you'd think that like right there would be the end of the shenanigans for the night. But we get off the stage, we go over, we had our merch table set up, like basically where the water fountain was between both bathrooms, which the bathrooms are like essentially an echo chamber. So I'm manning the merch table. Clay had just joined the band. Clay Eschelman, I think his name is, the drummer. He had just joined the band, and he was awesome. Like, he was so cool to us that night. He was so nice. Like, he was talking to us. You could tell that he had not become a part of the hive mind of the general vibe. And he was just so nice, and he was like such a cool individual. And I'm running the merch table, whatever. The situation had happened. I'd helped calm everything down. And I had my table set up in a pretty decent distance away from both bathrooms where people can't like run into me. And I seen the drummer, or not the drummer, I seen the bassist Clay Gober walk past me, like walk in the bathroom, kind of just like give me like a walk past. And I was like, kind of like, hey, what's up? And I had seen him go in the bathroom behind me. You can hear every bit of echoing in that bathroom. I could hear every single word anybody's saying to me. And one of my friends comes up to me who was in the crowd that night. He is so drunk. And he comes walking up to me, and he just starts talking so much shit on Philippia. He's like, man, these guys are this or that. Like, oh my God, like they don't deserve it. Like talking about shit. And I'm here. I can hear his voice echoing in the bathroom. So I know Clay is hearing every word he's saying in the bathroom. And I'm like, bro, like everything's fine. Like it happens. Like I'm like, dude,
We're really happy to be here.
yeah. Like I'm like, dude, like this is like a good vibe. Like don't like we're trying to avoid the bad vibes. Like shit happens. Like it's okay. He walks away from the table, whatever. Clay comes like storming out of the bathroom and does like a fake stumble into our merch table and knocks the merch table onto the ground with like all the shit. Everything goes like flying everywhere. And he looks up to me and he puts his hand in front of his face. He goes, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Like he does this like super drawn out, like I'm looking at him and I'm just like seeing red. Like I'm just like looking at him. And my immediate response was, Clay, being able to play with you at this show tonight was great. Like being a local band, like you guys are my heroes. Like it's okay, bro. Like I know shit happened. And he looked at me like when that happened, he was not expecting that response. And he was like, okay, man. Like he kind of realized like
maybe I am the jerk.
Maybe he was being a dick and like so like he's like, oh okay, bro. Like I'm sorry. Like he picked up the merch table and like helping me put the shirts back on and shit. I'm just like, bro, like thank you for. It was kind of just like whether it was an accident or a coincidence. Like again, like how many times is lightning going to strike in the same place for you to realize like I'm continually dismissing the treatment here, and I'm just like I understand, like I get it. You guys are up here. You guys are the top of the food chain in this genre. You guys probably started from where we're at right now, and you probably were treated the same way. So like you're kind of dishing that out to other people because you're like, we finally made it. Like whatever. You have
let the hazing commence.
People, but like for that to happen, like right after that set, I'm just kind of like, damn, like kind of fuck these guys. Like I was like, if everybody else around me was on board with like fuck these guys, and like I was just like, no, shit happens. Then when that happened, I was like, you know what, fuck
maybe,
these guys.
But, maybe
like,
fuck these guys.
I still listen to them. I like the music, like whether it was a misunderstanding or not, because later that night I made a post on Facebook and was like, man, Philippia really doesn't like Nephele. And that post just blew up. Like people started jumping in the comment section. People from other cities who were in other local bands were jumping in. They're like, bro, I've heard this same shit happen. I've heard this same shit. People started tagging people in. And it was before cancel
people
culture.
in other cities reciprocated the same events happening to them.
Again, so yeah, like
it doesn't seem like it's a one-time thing.
Yeah, and so like people are tagging people, and then it gets to the point where people who are friends with Scott and Tim and them are like tagging Scott and Tim. This is before cancel culture, not necessarily like saying like they were being canceled or like I was trying to cancel them. I was literally just, all my posts was like, damn, Philippia really doesn't like Nephele with a little frowny face. And everybody else, the fans, the friends just ran with it and just started trashing them. And then I got friend requests from like the whole band. They all like jumped in the comment section. Like Tim jumped in, was like, hey bro, like, we saw your set. Everything that we saw of your set was like so good, and you guys were so awesome. And I knew, like, my dad even said, like, they weren't in the building, like they were up in their van.
I was all for
like,
optics.
they were just doing their thing, like out. Yeah, they were like doing the pre-show ritual, doing whatever. Like, understandable, it's a local band, not everybody gets to check everybody out. But don't jump in the comment section for PR and say like, I was your number one fan. I was front row. I saw you guys play. You're inspirational. Like, don't like oversell and oversaturate the situation to try to cover your own ass. Just like be accountable and just be like, shit happens. We're sorry for the shit that happened. And instead of that, it was like a whole bunch of like signing babies and kissing titties. So that was
I like
that
the flip
situation.
there. Sign the babies, kiss the titties. I like that.
That was that. And I'm going to go ahead and roll right into the first one while I'm at it, because I have to pee. So I'm going to get this told, and then I'm going to go pee. But the first time that we played Philippia, this is a little bit more brief. we played with again.
I'm gonna
Yes, people.
Oh, yeah.
We played with, we were all just chugging coffee and water today.
It's all good.
It's flowing through me.
Our creative juices are flowing right through. But to touch on the first time that we played with Polyphia, it was, like I said before, it was Saves from the Archon, Delusions of Grandeur. That was a smaller show for the Smile Moves. I think we sold like maybe 35 or 40 tickets, which again was like, 2015. That was like kind of like a first big opening show for us. That was pretty big for us, like selling 30 tickets to a Smile Moose. That's like half capacity right there, essentially. And we got up to there. We're loading in, and Anoop Sastry was drumming for Polyphia at the time because they were in between drummers. So being able to like hang out with a drummer who I'd previously seen with Intervals, who I'd also played with, he was drumming for Monuments on the tour that the Contortionist came through. So we played with him that night. And my buddy Jimmy, who produced Solidarity, he got Anoop and John Brown, like both smashed drunk at the Contortionist show when we played with them.
Awesome.
He got both of them drunk. They were so cool to hang out with. But this night, Anoop came back and Jimmy was like, yo, Anoop, my man, like, we're drinking again. So he got Anoop so smashed before Polyphia's set. Like, we're kind of just like, this was our first time playing with Polyphia. And they had asked Anoop, they were like, yo, like, go ask these guys if they want to, like, be the headliners. So they came over and talked to us, and they had Anoop come over and ask us. Anoop was like, hey, guys, would you guys want to play, like, last? Would you guys want to be the headlining band? And, like, for Polyphia to come over and, like, talk to me, I didn't see the situation, what was happening. We were the local draw. And I looked at the guys, I was like, guys, would you want to headline for this show? We can headline Polyphia. And, like, to me, young me, I'm like, oh, my God, this is so awesome. This is so cool. The night happened. All these bands are playing. I don't see what's happening. Polyphia plays their set, and Clay Gober, again, hero of the day, great guy, really great guy. He comes out after Polyphia plays their set. He's like, hey, guys, thank you, everybody, for coming out to tonight's show. Thank you for all the local bands. Like, everybody drive safe. Like, have a great night. Like, the show's over. And we were playing after Polyphia. So basically, he tells everybody, like, hey, sayonara, thanks everybody for coming out, and did not say one single word about, like, hey, stay tuned for the local band. Like, he was basically just like, have a great night. And my dad seen what was happening. My dad jumps up on stage and grabs the mic. He's like, hey, stick around for the local band, Nephele, that's like playing afterwards, which at that point, I didn't see what was happening. Polyphia had already played. The draw was gone. Like, the people who weren't our friends were dipping because they were like, who cares? Like, we saw Polyphia. That's what we're here for. I don't want to see local band.
Well, dude, and thank God we sold as many tickets as we did, or else we wouldn't even have had a crowd there.
Yeah, like the fact that we sold like 25, 30 tickets, there was still a good amount of our friends still there to see us, and I think maybe 2 or 3 people stayed. Actually, I met one of my buddies, Dan Gold. I met him. I think he was there that night. I think he was one of the people that stayed for Polyphia, like stayed after Polyphia and checked us out. He may be one of those people that stay there.
He's been a fan ever since.
Yeah, he's been one of the boys.
Shout out Dan Gold.
Shout out Dan Gold, one of our number one fans, next to my buddy Ash. But just seeing all the people dip out, and then like we get up on stage and we play to our friends. I'm looking at everybody else. I'm kind of just like, I see, like, after it happened, I didn't see what was happening, but after it happened, I was like, damn, like, everybody just cleared out, and another opportunity lost of playing to another group of people. So that was the first time, and then the second time happened, and then, like, that happens after that. But the second time we played, Yvette Young really helped console us, because she came down, like, right after we come off the stage, and she's like, hey, guys, your set was, like, what you did play was awesome. She watched. She was there. She actually watched, and she was.
I actually saw her to the side of the stage whenever you guys were playing. So
yeah, she was the real MVP that night, because she came over and like had this like hand drawn thing with like this letter that said like, "Thank you guys for playing with us." Like, she was kind of like PRing for Polyphia. I still have that in my house. She gave it to us. And she's
that's
like,
really cool.
Guys, like, we actually had to cut some of our set. Like, she wasn't like being like boastful or anything about it, but she was kind of just like, hey, like, we actually had to cut some of our set time, like, so like everybody else could kind of play. So Covet took a set cut. We took a set cut. First time we played with Polyphia, they basically used our draws, told everybody, have a nice night. The second time it happened was that. So this is to all the viewers that I told to come watch this story. The story is now told. I will never tell this story ever again. It's in the vault. I'm locking it up, throwing it away, so I never have to tell this to my bandmates or any of our friends and fans ever again. So,
Refer to this podcast.
refer to this podcast and check out our new single.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But,
just direct all of the questions. Just direct. We're just going to start getting blown up in our DMs about it.
People are gonna be like, I need more details of the Polyphia story because you guys hit on the. No, but
We're going to be your PR people now.
Yeah, that was those nights, and I mean, I don't want to be the band. Like, I want to be known for our music and who we are. So, like, I don't want to be that band that's just like continuously like being spiteful and being like, hey, oh yeah, like riding off the coattails of Polyphia or something like that. Like, this new music that we have is definitely going to be speaking a lot for itself. And, I think it's going to make a lot of people happy and bring in a lot of new fans. So,
Great. Yeah, and I won't tell any more Polyphia stories because I think we unless you want me
tell
to.
whatever ones you want in the future, whenever you can tell them right now to the guys. I'm gonna go pee.
Oh, you're good.
I'm gonna go take a breath after all the talking I just did. But I have to pee.
Well then, while you do that, and before we transition, then I'll tell one more Polyphia story, just so we have the full crew here for the closing there. But every time I've seen Polyphia, I feel like something weird has happened, and most of the times I've seen them, they weren't headlining; they were opening for a different band. And one that's like of note that stands out to me was they opened for Between the Buried and Me. And it was at Smalls.
Jake should have been here for that. That's his favorite band.
Oh, that's one of mine. It's between them and Coheed. The Contortionist is up there too. There's but for sure. And so it's sold out. I mean, Between the Buried and Me, usually not all the time because Pittsburgh's kind of hot and cold. Sometimes, we'll see, Pittsburgh sold out real quick for a band, and then another tour will come through and every other city will sell out except for Pittsburgh. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense how we like sort of, I don't know, go to shows apparently in this city. The music scene's hot and cold, but they sold out, and Polyphia was, I think, maybe the openers. Like, they played first. I don't remember who the other support band was. I'd have to look it up. But when they played, it was probably a Wednesday night or something like that. There weren't a whole lot of people in the crowd yet. It was a sold out show, but not everybody showed up early necessarily to watch their set. And you could tell that they were annoyed by that. And so they played their set. They barely talked to the crowd at all. This was before this was like back when, they looked like robots on stage. They don't really move a whole lot. They don't really do a whole lot. They just kind of come out, play. They're incredible musicians.
Yeah, they still don't do the movement on stage.
Right. But ever since they decided to put Clay in the center, he's like usually the most animated, so it kind of makes them look a little more animated than they were, because it used to be Tim in the center, but they sort of shuffled that up, and Clay is animated, so it, whatever. But even back then, Clay wasn't. Everybody was just stoic, and it was all polished and sounded great, but they were kind of annoyed that there weren't like the crowd wasn't full, and it filled up pretty much right after their set, and everybody was at the merch table. I was in line for BT Bam's merch table after their set, and their band manager is sitting over there just shit talking Pittsburgh, like with everybody there in line. There were there were a lot of people there because it was between sets, and that's typically when people rush the merch tables. And just shit talking Pittsburgh, like it's a terrible market. It's all that, that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth too there, because this show was sold out. Like there's not a ticket to buy.
Was that the Colors? Was that the Colors anniversary tour in 2017?
It might have been. It might have been.
What that show was, yeah.
Yeah.
If it was Between the Buried and Me, that was the Colors. That was Colors.
Yeah. And just
that was maybe a bit after.
I was gonna say, I wonder if she has a bad taste in her mouth from.
And I didn't remember the timing of it. I just remembered that I had multiple situations with Polyphia where it left a bad taste in my mouth. One being when you guys had your situation at Cativo, And then here, when she was just I mean, it wasn't like an accident she was saying it this loud to like the one person at the Polyphia merch booth, but it was just it seemed like she was just there to shit talk Pittsburgh, and it kind of, I mean, I got a lot of pride in my city, so
That's kind of shitty. That definitely, gives a bad taste in my mouth too.
Yeah,
if there's something I can touch on,
not professional.
if there's something I can touch on with what you were just saying about Polyphia with switching things around from a band perspective, these guys are shredding a lot of the time, so there's not usually a lot of time for moving around.
Oh
which
yeah,
is why we have Ben in the middle of the stage, our bassist, which like we didn't really copy from them. It's just kind of like a flow wise. Like these two are shredding a lot of times, so it makes sense. Like Ben's kind of, he's done this. He's toured and done a lot of things. So we're all kind of like learning stage presence essentially from Ben, who is a seasoned vet who's done this. But Ben does a lot of like our crowd work and stuff because he's seen it done on like a massive scale. We're all kind of just like bedroom prog nerds, like playing shows. So we're just like, we're working on that. But from a band's perspective, especially an instrumental band who shreds a lot, when you're focusing on playing, even animals as leaders, like there's usually not a lot of time for talking or moving. So that's usually where comes in, which is what we're working on right now. So
and honestly, the sort of remaining stoic and playing and focusing to make sure that, I mean, the music that you guys write, that Polyphia writes, whatever, is very technical and very, involved. I don't necessarily even mind if there's like that's not something that I focus on or feel like I need. But when you don't engage with the crowd at all between songs, like it sounds like you're there to do a job and leave. Like you don't even necessarily like what you're doing. You're just there to just rip through shit and leave. Like that's where I'm just kind of like, well, I mean, was this even fun for you? Like, you know what I mean?
That show actually was after the show at the Gazebo, because I remember there was a few people there that were just like, yo, they were messaging me before and they're like, yo, we should start a fuck Polyphia chant or something like that in the crowd. I'm like, no. I was like, dude, like, don't bring any bad negative vibes towards us or something like that. Even though it was like the intrusive thoughts were very close to winning, because I was at the Between the Buried and Me show, and I do remember the crowd being kind of just like,
it was
kind of not really into it as much as they were for the other bands, and it was fun to see from my perspective. Because I was like, in the back of my head, I was like, you know what? Karma's a bitch. I'm glad this crowd really is, these guys right now, because it worked out. But I thought the same exact thing, and it was after that. It's probably why their tour manager talking Pittsburgh, because the experience they previously had with us. So.
But it's funny because like you said, that lit AF tour was also sold out thanks to you guys. But still, you're playing sold out shows, and you're saying how bad of a market, how difficult of a market it is to play. It's just it was I don't know, it rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like that. So and I was still
like in hindsight, it seems like BT Bam and Polyphia don't mix. Like that's a weird opening band to have on a BT Bam tour. Like I get it, they draw a crowd, but like I feel like the BT Bam prog guys are like classic prog. That's like, I don't know. It doesn't lend itself to like an overlapping audience. So I feel like the people that wanted to go to that show were there for BT Bam and not really Polyphia in the first place.
Yeah, which is definitely. Yeah, go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was just say they do have like a kind of different crowd. I mean, there's definitely some overlap, but I think like you said, mostly they're like kind of separate crowds.
Yeah.
Like Renaissance,
heavy
Renaissance and before from Polyphia, I feel like sort of meshes a little bit with Between the Buried and Me, but their newer stuff is definitely sort of like they really, split there.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I mean that's kind of where I saw them like 4 or 5 times on that Coheed tour because I used to follow Coheed all over the damn place. And there were some interesting things that happened there too, but we can move on here. I think like before we sort of conclude everything, I just want to know what's next for you guys. I know you guys are actively writing. What do you want to tell us and also our audience about kind of what you're working on now?
Well, so we've hinted at this like a dozen times probably already, but we do have a new album, and it's still in the works. We're still hashing out a lot of the details, but we have a full song list. We have names. We are the biggest thing, I guess, is that we're still trying to finish writing one particular song. For the reasons that I guess we're overachievers and we want to write something really
ambitious.
Ambitious.
It's a whirlwind of things that kind of just like creatively we just want to do.
Yeah.
Gotta make it right.
It's like once you hear the song, you'll know why it took so long to write.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that we've never done before. So it's a lot, and we're learning a lot writing the song, and we're definitely going to be learning a lot trying to learn the song as well in the process of
That's going to be a journey.
learning to play it. But yeah, I mean, we got is this song, and we have it's going to be our first full length album. It's going to be coming out as Ain't No EP, so we're kind of taking a big step into prog. I know it's like really popular to release singles and EPs and stuff,
and it is a concept album.
Ooh,
I don't know if we've officially labeled it that way, but somebody asked me that like the other day, and I was like, yeah, yes, it is a concept album. I don't know. I guess I won't get too far into it, but it's kind of the working title is apophenia or synchronicity, which are two words to kind of mean the same thing loosely, being that like recognizing patterns of external stimuli and making connections between them, even if they're not related. Does that make sense?
The prog nerd in me is really getting excited with this shit.
We've kind of like had a running joke in the band that like, we're living in a simulation. Like there was this period for like maybe last year where like we would always see like these weird like little patterns in everyday life. Like we would talk about something and then we would see it out in public, or that kind of thing. And it was kind of like that, that internet joke, like, oh, the universe or the simulation is breaking down, that kind of thing.
There's just been a lot of really weird coincidences in the last few years, and like the fact that, like, almost like finding the band name, for instance, like the coincidence of that happening, up to many, many, many coincidences of just random dumb things you could never predict happening, and we're all kind of just like, you know what, like, this new album is going to be simulation based. Like, and not to be like over cliche, because there's tons of other bands, like Born of Osiris, other bands are doing like the super genty, like AI generated simulation bullshit. Ours is kind of more of a natural.
It's almost, and it's almost like at the same time, it's kind of like ironic too. Like we're not like trying to do like the prog stereotype. We're kind of like ripping on the prog stereotype. Does that make sense? Like we even threw around ideas of like having a really ironically like prog song. Like, how they always have like something : this is like really long descriptive. Yeah. Like stuff like that. Yeah.
I listened to Coheed and Cambria. So
yeah. Coheed and Cambria or like Bush type of song titles.
Yeah.
Like, the journey through space time and all these kind of buzzwords, like
heady title. There's like, I don't know what 3/4 of those words mean.
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of came up with a interesting title to poke fun at that, I guess.
Oh yeah, we got a lot. Definitely a lot.
It's good.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, all the songs flow into each other, so it is in that way that drives some of the concept album theme. And that everything's kind of related, even though the songs are very different stylistically. So like, despite, almost fitting into like different genres within the album, the songs all connect, they all flow into each other. And it's that like interconnection of ideas that aren't necessarily related coming together and finding the synchronicity between them all.
So what kind of came first, the concept idea or like the writing process? Because I mean, were you writing riffs and then trying to fit it within the concept, or were you like, this is what we're going for, let's try, or is it just a combination, or is there's just nothing to it? You're just
I would say a bit of a combination between the two. Like we had most of the music written first, and then it kind of fell into place. We're like, wait, like this simulation idea makes sense. Like this album title makes sense, and applies to these ideas that we've connected. Because we do like this, on Solidarity, we did this too, where like everything kind of flows into each other. But this is, I would say like we took that approach and like stepped it up, and we did it like a better job this time, where it's more thought through. The songs like purposely lead into each other rather than like kind of just creating transitions to make them lead into each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's almost like composing sort of one piece of music in a way that's sort of split up versus like forcing it together with transitions. That's cool.
Yeah.
Would you say that the songs would still stand alone though? Because oftentimes when that happens, it's almost like you really got to listen to the whole record.
Definitely. No, these songs definitely stand alone. Yet they make an even bigger impact when you hear it all together, you know, in order.
Yeah, we were considering releasing like a lot of these as singles, and then it got to the point where like Dan had so many songs written to where it's like this is no longer an EP. This is no longer like if we release these all as singles, we could release like a single for like a straight year, and like we were all just like, let's just make this a full length, and like all the songs kind of just naturally ended and went into this, and it was like it makes sense to do this, and it's just everything fell into place. So
Yeah.
And then usually the names and the concept happens like afterwards, because like the writing will happen, and then it's kind of like, what does this sound like? And then we sit there and study how it sounds. Cause like that's usually the hardest part is writing, which is what we're going to be doing in this podcast. But it's a process.
I was going to say it in ways it almost makes me think like it would be easier to name an instrumental track because you don't have any like lyrics to base it off of to where you have to find the perfect name that fits the lyrics. But then now that I'm thinking about it, it might even be more difficult because it's like you're trying to like sonically, what does this make me think of and how does it fit the concept and stuff like that.
That's how I feel about it personally. Like with lyrics, if you have lyrics already, it's just like, okay, you go to the chorus, you find the line that like stands out the most or has the most like catchy appeal to it. But with instrumental music, you kind of have to like you could take the Owain route and like make joke song titles and whatever. But like we do a little bit of that, you know, Apples and Oranges, Bounce House, they kind of fall into that category. And a few songs on this one. But yeah, you kind of have to like vibe out the song. Like, how does this make you feel? Like, is there a word that encapsulates the feeling of this composition? That kind of thing.
And I think it kind of takes like for each song, kind of like, you know, piggybacking off what Dan was saying, it's taking like these melodies and kind of songs that have distinctive phrases in them that make you feel a certain way. It's like what kind of emotion are you trying to portray here? And it's like how can that melody be such an earworm that it's distinctive to that song, so they can be played on their own or they can be played in whole. So it's like how do you make the parts kind of puzzle piece, but how do you make them distinctive, like I said, on their own? And I think kind of one thing we're trying to focus on is making those distinctive parts, or like certain things kind of get stuck in your head, something that keeps you drawing back to it, kind of memorable. Yeah. Like
if I can use an example, Apples and Oranges is probably one of the most interesting song titles because we were like looking for a name for it, and we were in my room one day and I realized that both Dans were using orange cabs, so like all of those oranges, and we all had MacBooks in our rooms. And I was like, everything that we're using is just all apples and oranges. And we were like,
that's awesome.
It made sense with the way the song was written too, because like the first half of the song is like that heavy, fast paced, you know, like metal part, and then like the second half goes into that real clean section, and it's very drawn out, and it's almost like its own thing. Like Apple is the first half and Orange is the second half.
And it was just kind of like one of those connections again, like the band name thing. Like we were like, well, this physical representation of actual apples and actual oranges within our product that we're using to create this album, it works because this song is essentially like apples and oranges, because it goes from, like Dan said, it goes from crazy math metal to super video game sounding happy birthday, as Dan Tompkins of Tesseract said it, happy birthday metal, because that's what he said when he listened to it.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. Really looking forward to hearing what this new stuff sounds like.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know if you guys have any hard dates, or I doubt it since you guys are still actively in the writing process, but I don't know if you have any targets.
Tomorrow.
Right now, actually, we're going to play our new single.
Yeah,
We would.
No dates, but like we do have a new single that we might have mentioned once or twice here. It is just about done. We got the final mix a couple of days ago. So just gonna get it mastered and make a music video. You know, no big deal.
Light stuff.
Yeah.
If you need an extra to stand in the back and
You say that jokingly, but that you just manifested that because you guys are definitely going to be one of our future music videos.
Let us know. Yeah, do the simulation thing where we walk by in the background and all of a sudden we're back in the background.
Coming back from like different angles.
But yeah, this newer song that we have has a feature in it that is another really big up and coming internet guitarist that I think I may have told either of you guys when we were talking at the Space Weather show about it, but the feature that we have on this new single is it's pretty insane. Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
That's awesome.
I really can't wait for everybody to hear it.
Yeah.
I don't know who it is, but I would love to know at some point. Maybe you can, let me know after the podcast.
in the DMs.
Off the record. Yeah, off the record. Yeah, we don't want. I guess we don't want to record spoilers yet, but he's one of my favorite up and coming guitarists, and even surpassing like some people I've been listening to for years.
Yeah.
Because he's just absolutely insane, and to hype him up more without giving away who he is, I messaged him, asked kind of explain the situation about like how we wanted to do it, sent him the song, and he was like, yeah, I'll have this to you like maybe next week, and I'm like, cool, take your time. 24 hours later, he sends me the final fucking track, like completely recorded, written, recorded, tabbed out, and everything in 24 hours.
He just killed it.
And it was
wow.
Like literally no revisions, no nothing. Everything that he had written for his first one, we were all just like, that's it. That's the take. That's the solo that we wanted. Like that's cool. And we kind of pitched it in his wheelhouse too, because like when Dan was writing the song, we kind of had like, this has his vibe in it. Like this song is like, we know who is going to be on this song. And then whenever he agreed to it and did it as well as he did, it was a reason why it went as fast as it did, because it was
like catered to him almost.
It was like if he wouldn't have been on it, we would have probably made do, but it wouldn't have been the song that it is that we have prepared for you guys, because it is perfect.
I'm excited to hear that.
I was actually going to ask at one point earlier, whenever we were talking about like features and vocal features and stuff like that, if you guys were ever going to go down the rabbit hole of like instrumental features. You guys talked about, with Angel Vivaldi and stuff like that. So this kind of answers that question without even asking it. So
we have including Mike in this one. We have a few more features on this album. So
vocal.
We're not going to tell. Not going to tell that. But there are 4 features coming on this album. So you guys will be surprised to remember back in the day whenever Polyphia released Muse and just every single song had like a banger on it. Like there was somebody like dropping heat.
Aaron Marshall, Jason Richards.
Aaron Marshall, yeah.
This is our Muse. This every single song on this album has a heater on it. So
just about. Almost.
That's awesome. That's that is exciting. I think maybe we should sign off on that note then, because I think that's a nice little cliffhanger there. So unless you guys have anything else you want to add or close with.
I think that's it. I think that's the strong point we want to end on, is just new shit that is coming down the pipeline. Is like we're the shit that we're the most proudest of.
Prepare your ear holes.
Yeah, we are the most
Absolutely.
proud.
And if you want to support us more, we have a website with lots of merch. That goes directly to funding the album. So nepheleband.com.
Yep. And
we can link that in the description for the episode and everything too, and put in the post.
Yeah, in the link.
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Smash that like.
We
click all the
appreciate
buttons.
Yep, all the buttons. Just click them all.
Follow these guys. Follow the podcast.
Thank
everything you. About this. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, and we'll definitely link everything when we drop this episode. We'll link everything, and every time something else drops from you guys, whether it's shows, tours, singles, albums, music videos, we'll be sure to post them everywhere we can.
Spread the love.
Thank you guys so much for doing this. It was an adventure in the beginning, but I'm glad we were able to get through it.
No, it was an honor to like be the first band interview on your podcast, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. It was
the opportunity.
it's perfect. I'm glad that it worked out this way. And it's like, we kind of have talked already before, so it made this like a little less nerve-wracking than someone we haven't met before and stuff. So
and it was fun for us too, because we had been listening to your music before we even ever sort of communicated too. So while you guys are a local band to us, you're a band that we've been listening to. So this is cool for us. And I mean, thanks again, guys. We really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody listening to this podcast. Again, check out Nephele everywhere, streaming, whatever. Keep an eye out on our page and their page. Follow them on social media. We'll link everything. And thanks a lot for listening, everyone. And thanks again to Nephele.
Thanks.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.